With DUI and manslaughter after her children were hit and killed by a car. A judge releases her from jail.
And the latest on a tragedy in El Cajon. A young girl found her parents dead in their home. We'll have a live report as well as hearing from neighbors.
Plus, the search is over for the submersible that disappeared on Sunday. Coast Guard officials say it suffered a deadly, catastrophic implosion. Experts explain what this actually means. CBS 8 News Live at 6 starts right now.
This is CBS 8 News Live at 6.
A mother whose 2 children were killed when they ran into the highway pleads not guilty to DUI and 6 child endangerment charges. Good evening. Thanks for joining us. I'm Marcella Lee.
I'm Carlo Cicchetto. The district attorney says on Father's Day, 33-year-old Sandra Ortiz was arrested after 2 of her kids were killed trying to fetch luggage that fell off their car on State Route 78. The 16 and 10-year-old children were killed by a car. Investigators say the mother's blood alcohol level was nearly 2 times the legal limit. CBS 8's Abby Black is live outside the Vista Courthouse, where it was an emotional day in court. Abby?
Carlo, it was incredibly tough to be in court today watching the mother sob uncontrollably as the attorneys and judge spoke about her 2 kids who died, Amy and Alan. And as you can imagine, this was tough to be there as well. And despite this tragedy, the judge released her on supervised conditions.
My baby.
Behind a plexiglass wall, chained and handcuffed, 33-year-old Sandra Ortiz sobbed uncontrollably during her arraignment, where she's charged in the death of her 2 children, 16-year-old Amy and 10-year-old Alan.
The defendant was driving with a blood alcohol level of 0.14 while having her 6 children unsecured, unseatbelted in the car. Driving under the influence is in and of itself a public safety concern.
The deputy district attorney says on Father's Day, Ortiz pulled partially over on State Route 78 in Vista when the luggage fell off from the roof of their SUV. Amy and Alan ran into traffic to retrieve the luggage and were hit and killed by an oncoming car.
Based on the investigation, it appears that the defendant remained seated in the vehicle and does not appear that the defendant made any efforts to stop the children from exiting the vehicle or to get the children out of the freeway.
Through her tears, you can make out that Ortiz is crying that she's a good mother.
Good mom.
Ortiz is now charged with 6 counts of child endangerment with 2 special allegations connected to the deaths and 2 misdemeanor DUIs. Amy and Alan's 4 siblings witnessed their deaths.
When law enforcement arrived, they detected an odor of alcohol, red, watery eyes, slurred speech, and an unsteady gait.
The children's father, his family, and Ortiz's family were in court but did not want to comment. CBS 8 spoke to the father on Tuesday, who defended the mother.
She has nothing but love for our kids.
Ortiz faced $500,000 bail.
I am going to have Ms. Ortiz released from custody. I am going to place Ms. Ortiz on supervised own recognizance release conditions.
Under a protective order, Ortiz cannot see the children unless it's at their sibling's funeral or by telephone.
Don't do anything to her, my baby.
As part of Sandra Ortiz's supervised release, the judge ordered that she has to obey all laws, or if she breaks them, she will have to go back to jail. She also cannot drive or drink. Now, the deputy district attorney argued to keep her bail set at $500,000. They say that the family just moved here from Arizona in December. They do not have a stable home, and the children are not going to school. Now, under these conditions, the children's father and his family and her family can see the children. Her next court date is on June 30th. If she's convicted, she faces 20 years in prison.
Thanks, Abby. Developing news out of El Cajon tonight, where a girl came home to find both of her parents dead in their bedroom.
Sheriff's deputies say she called 911 just after 9:30 this morning from the mobile home on East Bradley Avenue near Graves Avenue. CBS 8's Kirsten Holmes is live in El Cajon right now and has the details for us. Kirsten?
Yeah, we are live here in the Via Cajon mobile home park off East Bradley, where if you take a look behind me, you can still see some crime scene tape, and further behind me, even a deputy's cruiser. Investigators say the eldest of the 3 children who lived in this home actually came home and made a horrific discovery, called 911, and was seen sobbing outside of their home with her 2 smaller siblings. We talked to neighbors in this community. Take a listen to what they had to say.
The oldest girl was crying like heck. She was crying and crying and crying, and she was hugging her brother. They're nice people. They were nice people, very, very nice. No problems at all. The kids would play. They would always say hi to us, and we were asking, what's going on, what's happening, and they were nice people. No. Not in my mind I would ever think that something bad would happen to them like that and leave their kids, their 3 kids.
We still have more questions than answers on this situation, but here's what we know so far. Deputies got to the scene and confirmed 2 deceased adults inside. San Diego Sheriff's Office is not aware of any calls to this particular home before, but homicide detectives were called to the scene to determine the exact cause of the adult's death. But what they can tell us is that both adults had serious upper body injuries, mainly head trauma. We spoke with neighbors who live just a few doors down who says this family had big plans to move to South Carolina before all of this happened. Take a listen to what else they had to say.
They were asking them, did you hear anything? No fights, no arguments, no shots? And everybody said, no, we didn't hear anything.
This is still a very active investigation. We'll keep you updated as more information comes in. Again, there are neighbors who are just shocked, and most people say that they never saw this coming. Stay with CBS 8 on air and online for more details as this story develops. Back to you.
All right, Kirsten, such a tragic story. Thank you. The man accused of killing a woman in what police say was a random stabbing at a park in City Heights is now scheduled for a competency evaluation. 23-year-old
Silvanusi Patafalai Hamala was slated to face a judge today, but that didn't happen. The arraignment was suspended after Hamala's defense attorney declared that he is mentally incapable in a legal sense of facing a judge. Prosecutors say Hamala randomly stabbed and killed 66-year-old Chi Kao while she was exercising at the park. Hamala's uncle says the family wants to sincerely apologize for what happened.
We as a family just wanted to send a message to Mrs. Kiao family. First off, we send our deepest apologies, love, thoughts, and prayers, and our condolences to you guys.
The next court date is scheduled for August 3rd. The family of a man shot and killed by a San Diego police officer at the San Isidro Transit Center earlier this month says they are suing the city. Witnesses say 19-year-old Mauricio Ramos was threatening passengers and pointing a weapon that turned out to be a Glock replica BB gun. San Diego police released security footage that shows Ramos rocking back and forth in the trolley and pointing that gun at the camera. This police body camera footage shows an officer confronting Ramos entering the trolley. The officer shot Ramos after he reportedly pulled out the gun. Ramos's family argues that the footage shows Ramos was not a threat.
When Mauricio was encountered by the police officers, when they first observed him, he was by himself. He didn't pose any risk of danger to anyone. He was sitting down, still rocking back and forth.
We reached out to the San Diego Police Department for a statement, but they said they will not comment on pending litigation.
On behalf of the United States Coast Guard and the entire Unified Command, I offer my deepest condolences to the families.
5 people who were on a sub voyage to the Titanic wreckage have died. The Coast Guard confirms the debris found on the seafloor 1,600 feet from the Titanic were pieces of the missing sub. Coast Guard officials are describing the tragedy as a catastrophic implosion of the vessel, giving the crew inside little, if any, warning.
Deep dives in submersibles are common for military personnel and researchers, some who work right out of San Diego. CBS 8's Jesse Pagan is here with a deep sea researcher's perspective on what exactly happened here. Jesse.
Yeah, Carl Marcella, certainly not the conclusion that anyone wanted to come out to, but we do know that there is some experience that some researchers have that is similar to this down there in those depths that provides some insight into all of this. So catastrophic implosion is the term we've been hearing throughout the day, which really has to do with pressure, especially that deep and tough pressure at the bottom of the ocean. Experts say the pressure down there near the Titanic is about 350 times what we feel on the surface. Down there, you wouldn't feel that on your body. The hull of the ship you're in would, but any tiny failure of that ship could prove deadly.
one of my early impressions was, I think something happened to the sub, and if that's the case, they're done.
As soon as Dr. Michel Boudria heard the news, his experience led him to a grim conclusion. Dr. Boudria is now an associate professor of environmental and ocean sciences at the University of San Diego, but for years he was a deep-sea biologist and went on 5 submersible dives.
I mean, when we were doing our research submersible dives, there was somebody at the surface calling continuously. We have a record, every hour there's a check.
He says the approach to everything is safety and communication first, with gauges, monitors, and alarms, keeping tabs on pressure, oxygen levels, and more.
I don't know of any submersible that does this in a serious way that does not have all the systems there and then a completely double set of systems for virtually everything.
But even so, he says a failure as small as a pinhole in the hull could prove deadly, and it's what he thinks likely happened to the Titan.
It's an instantaneous thing. The pressure from the outside comes in, and it basically collapses the metal. You get the impact of an implosion. Like when you see a building collapse, right? They implode these buildings. It's kind of that same perspective.
Coast Guard officials say they don't know yet if they can recover the bodies of the 5 people on board the Titan, let alone the actual pieces of it down there. They will, however, use the resources amassed so far to keep searching and gathering information in that area. Right now, they don't know when that implosion happened. Of course, as we know through the process of this search, we heard those noises that were picked up by several different vessels out in that area, so several different parts of the investigation that now all of these people from the Coast Guard and whatnot will be putting together.
Worst case scenario in some ways, but in some ways there might be some relief. A, some closure. B, it doesn't look like they suffered, that this happened quickly, and I guess there's some solace there for the families.
From all the experiences that everybody's been talking about, instantaneous is the word. If it had to come to this, hopefully it was quick and didn't take long.
Pain-free, yeah.
Yes.
Thanks so much, Jesse. Yeah. Appreciate that. Earlier this week, we told you about recent orca attacks happening on the Spanish and Portuguese coasts. Well, tonight, we're learning about another attack in a different area. The latest one happened off the Shetland Islands in Scotland, marking the first attack in the North Sea. Retired Dutch physicist Dr. Wim Rutten said he was sailing to Norway when an orca rammed itself into his boat repeatedly. The whale stayed behind the boat before returning 2 or 3 more times and then later circled his boat. Fortunately, he was not hurt.
Still ahead, we have video of a mountain lion trying to keep cool in summer heat.
Plus, a hailstorm sent people at a concert running the damage it caused last night.
Just amazing. It's official. Summer has arrived here in the Northern Hemisphere, and today, the longest day of the year. Look at that, 14 hours, 18 minutes of sunshine. I'm meteorologist Sean Stiles. We'll look at your microclimate forecast.
And we meet the sheep working to lower the risk of wildfires, with many plants growing out of control after this year's record rain.